Hi everyone! Thanks for coming back to Raqs Talks. So this week we had the fabulous pleasure of getting to interview the casually fabulous Roxxanne Shelaby, and we just had such a great time talking with her. So it's a very long interview. It's a really good interview.
She had so much to say. That was
just
really amazing.
It was so hard to edit her because everything she said was fabulous and the way she said it was so fabulous. So
thanks for joining us, and here it goes.
Here we go. So we're here talking with the fabulous Roxxanne Shelaby. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, we were very excited when we were discussing who we wanted to have on the show. You were like one of the very first people that came up in our list because we were like, oh, yay, Roxxanne. But I've been a stan for a long time, so it was obvious.
Thank you. The feeling is very mutual, and I'm excited to be here with you guys and talk about who knows what.
Who knows? So a few years ago, what year was it that you produced the Fez Documentary? Tell us about that.
That's a good question. It was many years in there of a lot of things happening with the Fez Documentary. So the idea was brewing in my head for years and years and years. And in 2010, I did the first interview. And so from 2010 until its release at the end of 2015. So a large part of my life was dedicated to making this documentary happen. While I had, a full-time other job in education. So I was making this documentary in my spare time, which is probably why it took a little bit longer, but we got it done. So that was good. With the help of, who, our other favorite person.
Yes.
Adrienne. Who was like dropped into my lap from the heavens and just did so much to help me make it happen. So I'm eternally grateful to her.
Yeah, she's pretty rad. So the Fez Documentary was a labor of love for you, and why don't you tell us why?
That's a great question. There are a lot of reasons why it was a labor of love for me. First, it's my family history. It's about my dad, who I was so close to and have learned so much from. And fortunately, there's so much belly dance history that is involved with the Fez. And so I really feel strongly about preserving that history because for the most part, our dance history is not documented. And so since I have a little piece of that puzzle, it was really important to me to document those stories of those dancers and musicians and, other folks that were at the Fez so that we have our dance history where people can refer to it and learn from it.
A few years ago, when it was still Cairo Caravan, there was a panel and it had a bunch of the dancers and they were just telling stories and things like that. So I had kind of an idea. Watching the documentary really was so like, oh my gosh, that makes sense, or I had no idea.
And that was my process as a human being as I was growing up, because as a child, I hear all these stories and I hear names of people and, we'd go to an event or we'd go to a show and talk to somebody and it was always the Fez, and people would get this like go into ecstasy, right? When they would talk about the Fez. And so as I got older, it's like I started kind of tracing these stars of belly dance on the West Coast that have done so much for our dance form, like Aisha Ali, like Tonya of Tonya and Atlantis, Fairuz and Antoinette, and all of these really amazing dancers. And it's like, wow, okay, she started the Fez, well, that person started the Fez, and it just became more clear to me as time went on. And unfortunately, by then, my dad had already passed away. So I had my memory, which was, not always great, and stories that I heard from other people. And luckily, I was able to connect with a lot of those dancers. And amazingly enough, the beauty of social media, when we started talking about it and I started putting out there, I started getting so many people that would contact me. Do you know so-and-so? They also danced at the Fez. When we started actually putting the film together in the beginning, it was January of 2015. I had zero footage of the Fez. It was the 60s and the 70s. We didn't just have random video of those times, right? And so I thought, how am I going to put together a documentary film? It's just going to be people talking and pictures. That's all that I had. And then a dancer on the East Coast sends me a message. Hey, I just saw this B movie, and it said Fez, it shows the Fez, and I don't know if that's your dad's Fez. I tracked that down, and sure enough, it's actual B-movie footage from inside the Fez, which
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
I didn't, I was 1 when my dad sold the Fez. So I have very few actual memories inside. And then someone else would send me something or put me on the track to something else. And so it really was the power of our community that helped me make this project happen. That was the only way. In raising funds, in getting information, and connecting with people, most all came from our dance community. So it's a beautiful thing.
That is really amazing. And one of the things that I like about our community is just how when we say, hey, we need this, or this is what I'm working on, and now, like you were saying, with the beauty of social media, it's easier to connect with people and do that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, and on a personal note, it was really great too, because that's what my father was about. I mean, that's why he created the Fez, is because he had such a sense of community, and he wanted to share his music and his art form and his dancing and the food with the community. And so to turn around and 50 years later, it's that same community that helped me make the documentary. Is always like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Get that. So because of that, that's why you started doing the Fez night shows, because you wanted to kind of recreate some of that sense of community.
absolutely. I started producing shows in the early 2000s.
That's how we met.
That's how we met, I know. So that was like around 2000, I started producing this showcase, which was a weekly belly dance showcase, which there are very few weekly shows.
Right.
So that was a really wonderful experience. And that was in a Brazilian restaurant, which I'm also half Brazilian, so that was interesting. But we danced to recorded music, and it was a fun event, and I got to meet a lot of dancers, and we had a lot of great shows. But as I kind of continued to develop as an artist and focused back on the Fez and what my roots are, I really felt it was extremely important to have live music and to have a whole event, like an event that's in an Arabic restaurant or nightclub with Arabic food, with live Arabic music and belly dancing. And so I started on that path a little bit before the Fez nights shows, and that was a really great experience. It's hard to produce an event with live music, and it's expensive, but I just decided there are so many shows out there. There's so many showcases, and we luckily have lots of opportunities to perform, that if I'm going to put my time and energy, which is limited, into something, it's going to be what fulfills me artistically. And so we had done the Fez, and everybody says the same thing to me. Can you open Fez? Can you reopen and make another Fez? And I was like, I would love to. That would be my dream. It's a different world now, so I don't know that it would, necessarily be as successful as it was. But having that opportunity to provide the feeling and the atmosphere of the Fez without actually having to run a restaurant, not my forte. And there's a lot that goes with that. So I started, I think, did we do 3 or we did 4? I don't know. I have quarantine brain now, so it all seems like...
I was at 2 of them. Yeah, I don't know, 3 or 4.
We did 3. And so following that format, which is really important to me, of being in an Arabic environment, food, live music, and dancing, I also feel it's really important to have fewer dancers and give those dancers the opportunity to perform longer.
Yes.
Like, hallelujah, you get 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes, which, depending on which end of the spectrum you're on, like so many dancers have only had the experience of dancing to a 3-minute piece with 25 other dancers in a show. And that's hard. I always joke that in Middle Eastern culture, you can't even say hello to someone in 3 minutes. Like,
right?
3 minutes is just like unheard of. And so we come from dancers in the days of the Fez that did a 45-minute set, and sometimes several. And now we're dancing to 3-minute chopped up recordings of music. And so I like to have 5 dancers and a group, and everyone gets to dance for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I get that.
So much more I could say.
At the showcase that I produce, I used to have a lot more people. I had the same kind of like, I don't mind supporting them. I don't mind dancing at them. Showcases that are just kind of a mill of dancers. You don't necessarily get a chance to really see the full breadth of our ability. And if you're one of the dancers that's going to be at that, and you have to think, what can I do in my 3 minutes? Or what do I want to do? Something slow? Do I want to do a drum solo? Do I want to do this very specialized kind of thing? And you don't have time to do all of that. And so that was why at Licensed to Zill, I started minimizing how many people and give everybody like 8 to 12 minutes. Let me tell you, Roxxanne, if you said, I want to dance for half an hour, I'd be like, done. You can have that. You are the second half of the show. So.
Okay, just kidding.
Fine.
Anytime. What time should I be there? It's one of those things that as a dance community, we have to relearn, because as dancers, part of why we do this is because we have a story to tell, right? We connect with the music, and the music itself takes a little journey to get going. And so we need that time to feel that music and get into the groove to really show our ability and what we are about as a dancer. And you can't do that in 3 minutes. You just can't do that. And so, I'm not trying to knock any of the other showcases. I understand, the dilemma of needing to fill the house in order to pay the bills. You know what I mean? And as dancers, we don't really have anywhere else to dance. I mean, if you're a gigging dancer, which I'm not really gigging anymore, showcases are our only opportunity. And so for many dancers, especially those that are still learning and coming up through the ranks, I need that opportunity to perform. But I'm happy that I have the opportunity to provide another perspective. And I want to do more. I don't know when and how at the moment.
Yeah.
But, the plan is to do more so that more dancers have that opportunity, because I meet so many dancers and not even just in Fez nights, but in previous shows that would say to me, could I just dance to my CD during the break? You're like, what, don't you want to dance? I don't know how to dance to live music. So it's a scary thing for people. It's this like vicious cycle. Like there's no opportunity to dance to live music. So when you get that opportunity, you don't want to look dumb.
Right.
You want to have a good show. So often dancers would opt to not dance to live music.
That breaks my heart, because dancing to live music is my favorite. The energy that you feel, like when you're going through this return back and forth.
It's an exchange.
Yes, that you don't get with canned music. I have been to many shows in the years that I have belly dancing, and the most life-changing show I ever went to was one of the Fez shows. And it's because just the energy between the dancers and the band and the audience was, I feel like I kind of experienced it before in various situations, but it was the first time I really experienced it.
Yeah. And that is what it's about. My dad used to call those great nights of the stage. We could also probably classify that under a tarab experience.
Yes,
right?
That's how I describe it.
It's that exchange of, like you said, the energy between the dancer and the band, and the band and the dancer, and the performers and the audience. And that energy, it is like addicting. Once you get it, once you feel it, nothing else will do. And recorded music has its benefits, and we use it mostly for everything now. But if any dancers are out there listening to me right now, please seek out an opportunity to dance to live music. Even if you don't know how and you're scared, just jump in and try, because there is nothing like it.
I don't remember how much it was to go to the show. I want to say it was $50 or $60 or something for the ticket. And I remember that there were some people who were like, oh, that's too much. But I think people are accustomed to just like the showcases where you also are buying your dinner on top of it, and you're not getting live music and that kind of thing. And so they expect to spend $20 for a ticket. But then they also are still buying their dinner on top of that. So they end up spending close to that anyway.
Right.
And aren't getting the experience that they with the live music and all of that. So I'm just here to say that it was a bargain. It was a bargain. I mean, I spent $200 or $300 a ticket for Hamilton.
I was just thinking of that.
And they did not feed me.
Have dinner.
No. You had to go across the street and have a very expensive dinner.
Right.
Or, if you're like McDonald's with like your $1 menu before you could go and see Hamilton. So I think, because that's one of the things too for me is like when I was a broke college student and I was coming up through everything, I would basically buy like my iced tea and my baklava so I could have a seat. So like, when you say $50-$60 and like that's my experience, like I can see where I'd be like, ugh, but I have grown up money, thank God. And like you said, I mean, there's so much more that's happening though. It's like, you're not just paying to see some of your friends dance to, the Hakeem song that you all dance to in class together. It's a beautiful moment because with live music, there's always going to be riffs. There's always going to be these little moments with musicians that don't happen when you play the same album over and over and over again.
It's so true. And like you said, you get the experience of having dinner, seeing a show, but also getting up and social dancing, which is something that I really promote a lot with my students in general, is that, the way that you become a good dancer is by dancing. And that's not always in a classroom to a choreography and, a contrived situation. Getting up and dancing to the music and just having a good time with your dancer friends and, dancing with actual people of the culture is a way that's going to improve your dancing. And it's hard. And I was a starving student too, and, the idea of a big ticket like that at a certain point in my life was out of reach. And so at the same time, I assure you, I'm lucky if I ever break even on those shows. I was happy after 20 years of producing shows. I think it was not the last one, but Fez Nights 2, that I broke even. I was able to pay my volunteers a little bit of money and pay off all my bills. And I finally thought, wow, I have made it. My dad would be so proud that I
get it
on the expenses, because the truth is bands are expensive.
Yeah.
The event location is expensive. And I also pay my dancers. Yes, I'm going to toot my horn on that one and I know everyone can't do that, but
I do too.
Thank you for that. Because it's important, how are we going to spend a couple $1,000s on a band and then not pay the dancers? We are professionals and we're trying to have a well-rounded experience. So yes, all of us out here who are producing these events, I can't talk about like the big festivals and all that. I think that I can speak for those of us throughout the country that are producing smaller events in our communities. We are not making any money. And most of the time we're losing money. So I think it's just important to kind of consider the importance of the experience and save up a little money and
make this a priority.
Yeah, well, you can't go to everything.
Right.
And you can't buy every costume and you can't do, everything that you want to do. Even when you have a grown-up job with a grown-up salary, right? Like, you still got to prioritize. So I just hope that, especially the younger dancers out there. And I do give the newer, younger dancers an opportunity to perform in my show. That's something that I learned from my dad at the Fez. And then there's a second nightclub, which I'm about to start the documentary process on that, called The Cascades. And a few dancers that you might know, like Sahra Saida,
Her.
Came out of the Cascades, and I have a whole new journey that I'm starting on. It will not be a big film like the Fez was, but it'll be probably smaller pieces of like vlogs and videos that will tell that story, because there's more to learn.
The other thing that you do that really contributes to our community is you teach Med Lab, which I got to participate in the first one, and it reinforced a lot of that information, which I think is really important because, we want to be respectful of the culture that we as
white ladies,
as
non-midnight dancers,
are helping ourselves too. So we want to try and learn all of that, or at least I think that people who want to be respectful need to learn that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Med Lab and if you're going to be doing any more, because if you are, do it again.
Really. So the Med Lab stands for Middle Eastern Dance Lab. And I started this program. It was sort of one of those things that evolved organically. My father was Lebanese. I live in Southern California. And so I grew up in the community of Middle Eastern folks from all over the Middle East in this community. And we're very fortunate that we have nightclubs and restaurants and stores and events and festivals and all kinds of stuff. And so as I go through this journey as a dancer in our dance community and a teacher, I found that along with not dancing to live music, many dancers had never been to like an Arabic nightclub, know nothing about the food, had not listened to live Arabic music before, and I was kind of dumbfounded. It was like, what do you mean? I took for granted. I think, you think everyone knows what you know until you realize, and don't worry, I mean, it's not just the white American dancer that is falling into that gap. I mean, it's across the board, Western dancers typically not getting that experience. And so I know there's a lot of great dance travel tours to the homeland, you know what I mean? Sahra takes people to Egypt. A lot of people are going to Egypt, are going to Lebanon, are going to Morocco and other places in the Middle East. And two things occurred to me. I said, number one, not everybody can go on those trips. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a community that has a lot of those places here. And then also, I noticed that there are dancers that go to the Middle East and come back with costumes and come back with music and choreography and some dance steps, still don't know anything about the culture. And so, I'm an educator at heart, and being Lebanese by heritage, I feel it's very important to communicate and share my culture with people. So I developed this program with some feedback from Adrienne again.
Of course.
Right? And so it's like a dance study tour in your own backyard. Like if you're in Southern California, I started it off with just, maybe 10 students, or participants like yourself. And we would do, now it's kind of a 6-month program. So once a month, we go on a field trip to somewhere in the Arabic community. And before we go on that field trip, we meet online. I'll do like a lecture and explain things like what to expect, do's and don'ts and things like that. And then after we have our field trip, we get back online together and we debrief, because I find that I can tell you all about it, but when you experience it for yourself is when you really, really learn. It's become like the thing that really fulfills me as a person, as an artist. I really, really enjoy these events. We go to Arabic concerts. We'll go to an Arabic church, not now because of COVID, but before COVID.
Right.
And so we would go to these different events and have a lot of fun. I would also wrap up the program with a party at my house with home-cooked Lebanese food by moi.
Which was delicious.
And which has evolved, because then people go, how do you make that? So now I'll start like, okay, come over early if you want to learn how to make hummus, and if you want to learn how to get beer, whatever I happen to be making. So it's also, it's evolving as I do it, and every time it's different. So now there's a little bit of a cooking lesson in there, and some other stuff. The interesting thing is, I started this latest MedLab 2020 in the end of January. So we went on one field trip and then we went into quarantine mode. I thought, I could refund everybody's money and try again whenever, but it's forced me, like many other artists are forcing themselves into how to do things online. And it's been really interesting. We have had some really great online events. One of those was Hummus Mania, which I did a little video because, in case you didn't know, I make the best hummus in the world. Certain things I can brag about. My hummus is one of those. We've done movie nights where we, watch an Arabic movie and learn about the culture through movies and talk about it. And we're doing a little segment just because I love weddings, and weddings are such a big part of the Arabic culture. And for many dancers, one of the events you dance a lot at are weddings. So you're gonna be mad when I tell you this, but this last MedLab 2020, Sahra joined as a participant. So we've been getting a little bit of, Sahra's wisdom along, as we go along. So one of the things that, as I become more tech savvy, and people were contacting me from around the country, like, could you come to St. Louis and do your med lab? And I'm like, no, because I'm from St. Louis and I don't know, whatever other cities people were asking me to go to. But I thought, we have all this technology that if you can't come to me, I can stream live and you can at least watch and participate in the conversation. So now I am doing a virtual version of MedLab, and I have people from all over the world. I have someone from Indonesia. Of course, I'm drawing a blank on other countries, but I have some people from all over the United States. So we do have like some core folks that are local, that we go actual places, but then I am video taping and streaming things so that if you're far away and you want to learn, you can.
Nice. I will say that one of the things that was driven home for me when we went to, I want to say it was Cascade in San Bernardino somewhere.
Castle. It was Castle.
Castle.
Oh.
Yes, Castle. We watched Adrienne dance, and there was the live music, and people were getting up and dancing and doing a deadkey and this and that and the other. Food was great. Everything was really fun. But something that definitely was driven home for me, and this is one of the reasons I think that your med lab is so important, is it was the reminder that I am a visitor in culture.
And that's one of the reasons I do this as well. And that is that there's no handbook that's like how to be a belly dancer in the Arabic community. That book doesn't exist. And the Arabic community and the Arabic culture is very different than ours and has certain norms and expectations that you wouldn't know by just going. And so I have the benefit of, I can see the culture from inside and from outside. So growing up next to Sahra, who I met when I was 9 years old, as she was going through her dance ethnology master's degree at UCLA, I got to listen and hear all that, and I consider myself a junior cultural anthropologist. So I learned a lot from her about how to look at the culture from outside as a foreigner, and what do you need to know to be accepted in that culture, be a part of it, and not just, there's another American girl who's making a fool of herself. So I use that to share with the participants. I'm going to be honest with you, we have some conversations that are difficult. Sometimes I struggle with, do I want to share or do I not want to share? Because I don't want to turn anybody off to the culture. But the truth is that there's certain things that you have to know. There's good and bad in everything. These are things that I will only have a conversation about in this program. And I'm not going to just put it out there for the world, because there are people that don't want to or are not ready to hear that stuff. So if you come to me and you want it and you want to hear the truth and you want to learn, then I'm happy to share. I'm glad that it was a good experience for you and confirmed things for you, as well as opened your eyes to some things. Because the Arabic culture, women and men are very separate for a lot of it. And as a foreigner coming into the culture, they're not going to let you into the woman's world if you're considered an outsider. There are ways and there's certain behaviors and things that you need to know and do to be accepted by the women. And once you get into the women's world is when you really learn about the culture. Like, no offense, like, okay, I had an Egyptian boyfriend, or so-and-so, the owner of Joe's Kebab Hut told me that blah, blah, blah. And all that is great. And you do learn from men. But as a female, you cannot learn about being an Arab woman or what Arab women go through or what it's like to be in the women's world from a man.
That's true of any,
I think so. I think it's true of any culture.
The thing is too, is I know for me, when I started dancing, it was 2008 when I started dancing, and there was still a lot of, at least for white ladies dancing, there was a lot of overlap. So like we'd throw in some ATS or some tribal moves into our cabaret stuff, and there was all of this. And I don't know if this is what happened for anybody else, but I know that that was really how I came up in my dance. And there was an article that was published by Salon Magazine by, I believe she's a professor of Middle Eastern Studies from the University of Chicago named Rhonda Gerard. And it was a very blunt article. You're laughing, I think you remember it.
It was
Someone just brought it up again recently too, so.
Okay, interesting. It was a very difficult article to read because, something that Faizeh and I discussed in our interviews of each other is that we're people who've always loved the Silk Road cultures, and we've loved Middle Eastern culture and Mainat culture. We've loved it. And just to ask someone very bluntly, you're not a part of this. And it's very painful for me to watch you act like you are. It was It was a very difficult thing to have. You know, she is not in a place where she particularly wants to educate white ladies who are representing this dance. You know, she doesn't really feel like doing that.
This is why I love Roxxanne so much, aside from the fact that she's a goddess when she dances.
Thank you.
Just, she's so amazing. So.
And just the fact that you do med lab, that you see that there can be, it's just white ladies need to know how to put their napkins in their laps to sit at the dinner at the grown-up table instead of being at the kids' table.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And you know, I struggle with things like that because, you know, there are some things in her article that ring true. I'm not gonna lie. But you know, I'm an educator and I learned from my father because my father was that person that was gonna teach you about the culture, and he was also gonna teach the Arabs about why do all these crazy American women love belly dancing. I mean, like, you know, so I learned the ambassadorship, I would say, from my father and my entire life. And so it's important. I get it. It's a wonderful thing to be attracted to a culture and a music and a dance and all of those things that are not your own. And to me, the important thing is how you handle yourself in that situation, how you learn about the culture, how you represent it. Yes, there's, you know, lots of branches from the belly dance tree now that go out into many different forms. I personally prefer the more traditional style of dancing, and that doesn't mean that anything is wrong with all the rest of it. I've seen some great tribal, I've seen some great ATS, I've seen some great fusion, but it's not what I personally choose to do. And I feel like it's really important that as Westerners who are looking for artistic freedom and expression, also find a way to honor the culture that this dance came from. And so you can do both. You can be a fusion dancer and you can honor belly dance and its roots. I'm using belly dance, by the way, because it's just easier. Some people prefer Raqs or Oriental dance. I'm going to just say belly dance. It's funny that you bring up that article, and I'm here, whether it's through MedLab or through other conversations. I will share what I know, and I don't know everything. I hate to tell you that. I hate to admit it, but I don't know everything. But I know a lot, and I'm going to be honest with those people who are searching for that understanding so that you can learn.
So now we get to the point of where can we find you on social media or wherever?
Wherever. Well, right now I'm in my living room. So yeah, I'm all over social media. On Facebook, Roxxanne Shelaby, which is a long story. I'll tell you if you will have time for it. On Instagram, Roxxanne Raqs, and Roxxanne with 2 X's and 2 N's, if it helps you, it makes it easier. I do have also a YouTube channel, which I'm finally getting videos of myself from like the past 30 years of my dancing. I've been dancing longer than that, but I don't think I have a video from all that far back. So on a YouTube channel, the official Roxxanne Raqs, you can find me there. I teach a weekly, right now by donation, class on Friday nights via Zoom. And so you can contact me and I can add you to the page and you can take that class, but you've got to listen to me talk and you have to laugh at my jokes. Right now, I'm still in the middle of the MedLab 2020 course, but I will be having another one sometime in the near future. So you can always check with me there. I have a website, roxxanne.com, and most of my new documentary work that's going to be happening on the Cascades, my dad's second nightclub, will be there. So you can find a lot of information. I'm currently working on my website, so I'm just going to tell you right now, there's some outdated stuff on there. And I have a blog, some of the interesting little stories of things that have happened to me in my 40-year career. Yeah. I have one I just wrote about meeting Soher Zeki, which is a lot of fun. I have one about starting my dance career thanks to Farida Fahmy, so that's in there. I also am talking about my trip to Lebanon 2 years ago, which I'm, talking about behind the times. Born and raised here, my grandparents came from Lebanon. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go back and go to the village and see the house that my grandfather was born in the 1800s and all these great things. So I'm just trying to share all of that. And I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I'm so happy you're doing this, and I wish you continued success. And I'm here to support in any way I can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Raqs Talks. And that was Roxxanne Shelaby. I'm Faizeh. This is
Parazad.
And tune in next time.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Ma salama.
Ma salama.